Okay, looks like we're live. If it would stay. There we go. Okay. Alright, we are live. We are going to be talking about Rush this evening. I am getting back into Rush again, and it is all because I decided to go through their later period albums, starting with Grace Under Pressure and then up through their last album. But what we are going to be doing today is talking about their albums from their debut up until Signals, and what's our favorite song on every one of their albums, and also what's our least favorite song on every one of their albums up until then. So we got Nick here. Nick is also a fan of Rush. I think he got into them a little bit more recently. He has actually heard all of their albums.
Yes, I have.
So I'm excited to talk about that. But first, you're probably wondering what this is here. This is Rush's first live album, All the World's a Stage. And the reason I have it out right now is because I don't have the first two Rush albums on CD or record. So since it has some songs from Rush and Fly By Night, I've got that there instead.
Okay.
Now you might notice what's going on behind me. That is the Exit Stage Left tour, which is the Moving Pictures 1981 tour from Rush. So if you're wondering what's going on behind me, that's what's playing.
Nice.
Alright, so before we begin, Nick, do you have anything to say in general about Rush?
Uh, I would say a lot, but if I had to say everything, we'd be here for like 10 minutes. But just to sum it up shortly, they're just this great rock band that just became a really amazing prog band. Like they started off with they started out good enough with their first two albums, Rush and Fly By Night, but when they started going to Caress of Steel, that's when they started getting really creative, and then when they made 2112, that's when they went a step way beyond comprehension, and then they just made great after they just made great album after another.
For me, I had definitely heard the name Rush before, but I didn't never really listen to them. I got into them after listening to the Moving Pictures album, which honestly, if you've never heard Rush before, Moving Pictures is a great album. If you're a Rush fan, Moving Pictures is a masterpiece, honestly speaking. Because the songs on there, they're good if you're not really familiar with Rush. They're like, oh yeah, that's that Tom Sawyer song, or that's this Limelight, I've heard that on the radio. But if you're a Rush fan, you can really understand the musical complexity behind some of the songs on that album. And for me, that led me to check out some of their other stuff, which had me go through their full discography up to Signals, which I've now gone through Roll the Bones in 1991. But I can honestly say that I don't think there's any bad Rush albums yet. Definitely some I like more than others, and we are
Yeah,
going to be ranking the Rush albums, but well, we're going to be doing a lot of Rush videos. I want to rank the Rush albums eventually, once I listen to all of them. Before that, I want to do top 10 Rush songs, but this is kind of getting confusing. But I want to do the top 10 Rush songs of 1974 to 1982, which is their debut, their Signals. And then my top 10 Rush songs of 1984 through the end of their career, which is Grace Under Pressure through Clockwork Angels. Because Grace Under Pressure is kind of where you see the start of a different era of Rush. I know Signals kind of was the beginning of that, but by Grace Under Pressure they had fully shifted over to that different sound. And because I'm really liking these 80s albums, I just feel like they're in a completely different genre of their own, and we should probably we're going to rank them all together, but when we're doing the top 10 songs, they definitely should have a top 10 list of their own.
definitely, I agree. Because not only that, but what thing I love about Moving Pictures now is it's like it's a mix between their awesome melodies their melody making that they would do in the '80s, but also includes their awesome richness and like their creativeness from their other albums like 2112 and A Farewell
Yeah, I'm
Looking.
not gonna say where that album ranks. You can probably guess if you're if you've watched my channel before, but that is definitely why I really like that album.
Yeah,
Okay, we are going to kick it back to 1974, where three dudes from Canada decided to make an album. Neil Peart was not part of the band yet. It was Alex Lifeson, Geddy Lee, and John Rutsey on the first album, We are talking about Rush's 1974 self-titled debut. Nick, what is your favorite song on Rush?
My absolute favorite song on the album is Before and After. That song is just amazing. Like from the first second to the last. It's like to me they're like one of their first songs that I'm like, yeah, this is really good. Not one of their first like masterpieces, like prog rock masterpieces, but it's definitely a great rock and roll song. And I really wanted to say The Working Man, but it just barely edged out The Working Man.
For me, I'm going to be basic and I'm going to go with Working Man. And I'm going to talk a lot about this when we do our Rush ranking, but a lot of these songs remind me too much of Led Zeppelin. And for me, Rush is not this bluesy hard rock sound that they're doing on this first album. To me, like, Rush doesn't find their sound until Fly By Night. And so I'm not as big on this first album. That being said, Working Man is still an amazing song, and it is my number one song on this album. I love Alex Lifeson's riff. John Rutsey, even though he is not the best Rush drummer, still is really good on this track. I like the jamming on this track. Geddy Lee is top of his game vocally, as he always is. The bass is great. It just kind of sticks out to me as the only really big standout on this album. I mean, there's some other good stuff on here I could have picked. What You're Doing, Finding My Way, but I'm gonna have to go with Working Man. Next, we are going to go with least favorite song. So, gonna pick the least favorite song on Rush.
Yeah, my least favorite song on the Rush album is "Need Some Love." Even though it's my least favorite on the album, it's not a bad track. It's just compared to the other 7 tracks, it's just the most, I don't know, very very basic sounding track. But to me, if the worst quality of a song is that it's too basic, then you're doing something right.
My least favorite song on that album is also Need Some Love. It does not sound like Rush at all to me. I thought about choosing In the Mood, because that sounds more like a Leonard Skinner song, but whenever you said Need Some Love, I'm like, oh no, that's definitely the worst song on this album. The lyrics are very basic, just kind of like basic love song, just like I need some love. Neil had not joined the band yet, so other people had wrote the lyrics. Very embryotic Rush. Again, not a huge fan of this first album, and Need Some Love is probably the worst of the worst on this album.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, things are going to get better. We are going to hop a ride on the Owl and go to Fly By Night, the second album by Rush. What is your favorite song on Fly By Night?
You know what? When I first went into the Rush catalog, I was like, might be the title track. But then like I listened to the album again the second time, and I'm like, you know what? In the end, it's my favorite song on the album. What a fantastic way of ending the album. Actually, I find the second side of the first, not first, I find the first side to be a decent side, but then the second side really picks it up. And the title track, Making Memories, and Riverdale are great, but in the end is, to me, the absolute, not like the best closing track Rush has ever did, but definitely up there.
It is very good. For my favorite song, I'm going to go with one that I know that you don't like as much. I think it might be your least favorite Rush song, but it's my favorite song on this album. And that is By-Tor and the Snow Dog. This is Neil's kind of first dive into doing, like, fantasy epics where, like, you got the big bad guy emerging from the depths of Earth to, like, fight the Snow Dog on the other side of the river Styx. And you've got the instruments that portray By-Tor and the Snow Dog going at it. And, of course, the Snow Dog wins because he's the good guy and sends By-Tor away, and everyone cheers the day ends. But it's kind of like kind of reminds me of Beowulf in a sense. I was supposed to read that in college, but you know, in my literature class, sometimes I didn't always read it. But they did talk about the story of Beowulf, and it kind of reminds me of that. But kind of the very first the first big fantasy song in Rush's catalog, and that's why it's my favorite on this album. Although I definitely could have gone with In the End. I like Fly By Night, I like Anthem, I like Rivendell, but I'm going with By Tor and the Snow Dog.
Okay. Well, for my least favorite track on Fly By Night, you guessed it. Not only that, but you guessed it. Well, not guessed it. You saw it. As of right now, it's my least favorite Rush song. I'm going through the discography, ranking all their songs, and as of now, it's my least favorite Rush song. And I don't know. The first time I heard it, I thought it was not that good. I don't know. Maybe I gotta give this album more chances, but I don't know. This song though, I don't know. It always definitely brings down the value of Fly By Night. I mean, the second side of the album brings it up, but I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of By Tor and the Snow Dog.
For my least favorite song, and I had to take a look at the track listing again, I'm going to go with Best I Can. It is a simple hard rock song in kind of the same vein as the first album. Now, Anthem is kind of the same way, but Anthem progresses a bit. You start getting those Neil Peart lyrics in there. But Best I Can is just a very generic song. Still, I think, better than some of the stuff on the first album, but not quite up to par with some of the other stuff we got going on Fly By Night, so it's going to be my least favorite on this one.
Okay.
Alright, I can finally go to an album I have in my collection. Probably the most underrated Rush album, and that is Caress of Steel.
Love
I
that
actually listened to this album today, not for the first time, for the second time, and I can conclude that it is very underrated. I'm not going to say where it ranks on my list yet, but I will say that I don't think people give this album enough love. It is very good. It's the first time that they're starting to do longer epic pieces. Like, they take what they were doing on By Tor and the Snow Dog and take it to the next level. Not quite yet the level of 2112, but they're at least experimenting a bit more. Very ahead of its time, sold very poorly upon release, but I guess they just weren't ready for it yet. But their kids were going to love it, if you get my reference there.
Yeah. Well, to me, Caress of Steel, the thing about that is if there was no Caress of Steel, there wouldn't be a 2112. Or better yet, if that album didn't fail as bad as it did, there wouldn't have been a 2112 because their record label wouldn't have been like, hey, how about not doing what you just did there? How about you do something, something better than that? And they're like, yeah, screw you. If we're gonna go out, we're gonna go out with style.
And they didn't go out. They ended up to go on and do bigger and even better things.
That's where the history of that ends. Well, my favorite song on Caress of Steel is the last song on Caress of Steel, The Fountain of Lemon.
That's a great choice.
That every song on that album just gets better and better. Every song gets better. Like the first track, I'm not gonna say what my least favorite is, but to me, like the album just gets better and better. And just this is such an epic track. And to me, if this track was released on any of their other albums, like Farewell to Kings or Hemispheres, it would be recognized and loved. But since it's on this album, people tend to hate on it. Not hate on it. Like, it's not like Hot Space where it's like dumped on, but like it's overlooked.
Yeah, they did. I feel like most people probably who don't like this song have just never heard it before, because it's definitely comparable to like Hemispheres or even 2112. Like, of the three side length epics, is probably my least favorite. But I could definitely see the progression of this to 2112, where they were like, okay, we had this long song about trying to find this magical fountain. They didn't like that. Let's make another long song, but make it about people who ban creativity as kind of a message to our record executives that they're being too, like, controlling over our artistic vision here.
Yeah, and like I said, it's probably my least favorite too of the side long tracks, but man, it actually it might be my second. It's my second favorite, but man, it is epic. Oh man, very close second though would be the Necromancer. That's another epic track, but I ultimately decided to pick this track because it's just so epic.
When I listened to this album earlier today, I found that I liked all of the songs on this album. there were none that I was like, oh, this song. Every time a new song came on, it was like, oh yeah, this song. I remember that. This is a really good song. I am also going to go with The Fountain of Lamneth because it's a very epic song. The ending is very upsetting. He's trying to find the Fountain of Lamneth. He thinks he finds the end, and it's just a disguise, and he has to start over at the beginning, and it kind of fades out, leaving it like what happens next. Songs or movies don't always have to have a good ending to be good. I know Avengers Infinity War is one like that. Thanos wins, and it's like, oh, well, what now? And well, they concluded that, but sometimes if the ending is left a little up to interpretation, that can actually make things better, and I really liked that about this song. I like how there's different sections, they're experimenting, they're being bold. Honorable mentions to The Necromancer and Bastille Day, which also could have been my favorite song on this album. And like honestly, in Lakeside Park too. All of them are amazing songs, but I'm gonna go with the last one just because it kind of shaped the direction that Rush would go with the next few albums.
Cool. I know what your least favorite's gonna be, but my least favorite, I think all of these tracks are 10 out of 10 tracks. Like, it's my, I think I said it was my third or fifth favorite. No, it was my fifth favorite Rush album, like just behind Moving Pictures, because the only reason why I think Moving Pictures is better than this album because it has two of my favorite Rush, well, two of three of my favorite Rush songs of all time. So that was sort of a bias there, but I think all of these songs are just perfect 10 out of 10s. But my least favorite, the one that if I had to pick, would be Bastille Day.
Oh, I really like that one.
I love that track. I see that's
something's got to be the. It's kind of the same with me. My least favorite is I think I'm going bald, just for the humorous nature of the lyrics. It doesn't exactly fit the tone of the album, but at the same time that's also why I really like this song. Is that it's like, oh, here's a song about Geddy Lee going bald, like in the middle of a really serious, like fantasy inspired album. There's this. You got a song about the French Revolution. You got a nice little song about a park in New York. You got a song about like wandering off into some kind of dark, mysterious lands and trying to escape. You got a song about trying to find a mystical fountain that will give you like long life or something. And then you got Geddy Lee is going bald. That that's why I like it, but that's also why it's my least favorite song on the album. But I showed this to my roommate earlier because we're going through the Rush albums, and when that song ended, he said, I think I'm Going Bald had no business going that hard because it's still a very rocking song. Great musicianship on it, but like you said, something's got to be least on this album, and it's I think I'm Going Bald for me.
Yeah, to me every song on this album just gets progressively better and better, just like tiny bit like if I had to not make it a 10 out of 10, like Bastille Day would be like 9.9998, and then like it'd be like 999.9. You get the point. It's just every song just gets a tiny bit better than the last, and I like albums that does that, where it starts off with my least favorite, but then like it progresses to go to the best track.
I got that song in my head earlier though. Gonna leave you to Bastille Day. That's my terrible Geddy Lee impression, but I had that in my head earlier. All right, moving on. What's next?
2112.
Yes. This is where things get really interesting. Alright. Yeah, my experience listening to this album was I bought the record immediately after hearing it because of how great it was. I love the sci-fi concept behind the title track, the Temples of Syrinx, kind of a government that oversees all the media that goes out to the people and makes sure that creativity doesn't go on. The people have no way of expressing themselves. And then a guy finds a guitar, brings it to them, and is like, look, I can make my own music. And then they break it, and like, that's dangerous. You can't be free to make your own music. And then, like, him getting upset, seeing a vision of what the world could be, and then the elder race of men coming back and retaking the world from them so that everyone can be free to make their own music. Just a really cool title track. The B-side's great too. I love all of the hard rock stuff on the second side. Passage to Bangkok, Lessons, Tears, Twilight Zone is amazing, and Something for Nothing. All amazing songs. It's going to be very difficult picking a favorite on here but yet at the same time, it's not going to be difficult because I know what my favorite is on this one. But
We both knew what our favorite was going to be going into this, and yeah, I could speak for us and say 2112 is the best song on the album.
yeah,
Yeah, it's easily the best song on the album. To me, easily a top 10 Rush song. It goes down in in fame for a great reason. Like we were just going over before, about the story behind it and how the story they made in the song and how not and it goes to like real life how like they're like, hey, this Caress of Steel album, that don't do that again. That's garbage. But then they're like, screw that, and then they made arguably, well, it's not my favorite song, but they made arguably their best song. Like, if I'm going objectively, I'd say this is their best song. If I'm going by objectively, in my opinion, that is. But yeah, the song's just epic. The story behind it, the awesomeness of it, Geddy Lee being awesome with his vocals as always. It's just everyone was firing at all three cylinders on this album. Not this album, this song.
yeah, same for me. 2112 is my favorite song on here. From the opening, sorry, from that opening droning synthesizer noise through "Attention All Planets of the Solar Federation, we have assumed control." You're just in for a wild ride. They really focus on the world building and the storytelling in here. I love that there's an overture that plays all the themes that you're going to be hearing, but it's like an overture inside the song. So they have to condense everything down because they could have made a whole album based on this story, but they ended up just doing half of an album based on it. I think that's cool they did it like that, but they totally could have done a full double album based on this story, honestly speaking. But I'm glad that it's just this one song, kind of takes it down, makes it compact, even though I am kind of curious what a double album of 2112 would be like. But the part where I think the moment I discovered how genius Rush really was, because at first I was like, when I listened to Moving Pictures, oh, these guys are great. They play their instruments really well. They can make really good, catchy songs that still are very complex, have weird time signatures, shifting rhythms, and stuff like that. Like, I knew Rush were genius, but the part I really got their genius is whenever they, in the guitar solo, right before we get to the Temples of Syrinx, Alex Lifeson plays da 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 da. And I'm like, is that the William Tell Overture? I'm like, no, that's what is that? The 1812 Overture by Tchaikovsky? And then it clicked. I'm listening to the 2112 Overture by Rush, and they just threw in the 1812 Overture by Tchaikovsky. And that was the moment I knew Rush was very serious about what they did. Going on from there, Geddy Lee's performance as the priests of the Temples of Syrinx is amazing in his high register. I like in this song how he switches his voice every time he switches what character he's singing as. Whenever he sings as the guitar guy, I don't know what to call him. We'll just call him the guitar guy. He sings in kind of his more regular voice, and then when he sings as the priests of the Temples of Syrinx, he goes up in his high register, and it seems like they do like a double track effect to make it sound like there's lots of them. I really love all the guitar work on here. I love that Alex Lifeson got an excuse to record guitar tuning, like tuning up his guitar and putting it in a song. That's really funny how they actually put that in there because the guy finds the guitar and has to tune it before he plays it. I love the effect whenever he's in the waterfall and you can hear the water flowing by him and he finds the guitar. I love the part where he brings the guitar to them and you get that bow, 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 bow. I love the guitar solo that's going on while they're supposed to be fighting over the guitar. It really sounds like they're fighting over a guitar and that he's still playing it at the same time while trying to gain control of it. But yet it still has control over it because he's doing all these really crazy runs and stuff with the wah-wah pedal. I love the dream sequence. I love the repeating echo that leads into it with the light. I stand atop a spiral stair. I love the ending where they just go really crazy. Neil is going crazy on the drums at the end. I love how at the end they go, "Attention all planets of the Solar Federation, we have assumed control." That is such a cool line to end the song on. I think it's really smart that if you count the number of words, "Attention all planets of the Solar Federation," that's 7 words, 3 times, and that makes 21, and then we have assume control is 4 words repeated 3 times, that makes 12, 21, 12. Like, these guys are really smart.
That was smart.
I think you can tell that I really like this song, just showing
Oh yeah,
by how long I talked about it.
it's a fantastic track. It's oh man, it's brilliant. You know, I'm just not. I don't. It's weird. I think I'm like when I listen to something like, oh man, I can say so much, but then like I just think so much. It's hard to express it. So I'm glad you could express it that well.
This is going to be a little bit more difficult picking a least favorite song on here.
That it is. Uh, well, I'm looking at my ranking of my Rush songs, and my least favorite on that album is "Something for Nothing."
Oh, I like that one.
I love every track of this album, so picking a least favorite, it's like saying what's the worst out of the best.
Yeah. There's not any bad songs on this album either.
Yeah, this is my third favorite Rush album, so
Honestly, there's not any bad songs on any of their albums from 2112 through Signals.
exactly. They have weaker songs afterwards, but
Yeah, so all the
even
ones
then,
I'm going to be picking are weaker and not the worst, basically.
yeah,
For me, it's going to be Lessons. Still a great song. I like that Alex gets a chance to write a song here. But again, we're just going by the least good song, not what's the worst. And it's going to be Lessons because the other choices we've got are A Passage to Bangkok, which is a really rocking song. I love the guitar riff there. The
Yeah, I like
Twilight
this song.
Zone, which is mega underrated, and I love all the references to the TV show. Tears, which is Geddy Lee's song, which has all this beautiful mellotron on it, and Something for Nothing, which is a really rocking ending song. So, just based on that, the other four, I cannot possibly choose any of those as the least best song on this album. I'm going to have to go with Lessons.
it's funny enough, it's my second favorite on the album, but I can see where you're coming from, though.
That's okay. It's still a really great song.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Farewell,
All right.
King. My second favorite Rush album now.
Well, the castle just crashed down and the strings were cut. The puppet is dead. Here is A Farewell to Kings, a record that I am very glad to have in my collection now. Another one of those albums where there's really not any bad songs. Well, there is one song that I'm not too big on, but the rest of the songs I really love on this album.
Yeah, I disagree. I think every song on it's truly fantastic, but I can see where you're coming from, though.
It's
Right,
one of those
right.
where it's still good, I just don't like it as much.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Uh, I assume a lot of Rush fans would pick "Closer to the Heart" as their favorite on this album, but my favorite's going to be "Xanadu."
Yeah, that's a great song.
It's
Good
another song
choice.
that's what's that?
Great choice.
Thank you. It's another song that's in my top 10 Rush songs. Deserving of it, of course. It's really good. Can't believe well, I don't want to spoil it, but I do put it over 2112, the song. I just love it that much. Like from the beginning, like with the like it's harder to replicate it, but
With the
It-
bird sounds and then like
it opens up so eerie, and it's just like
Neil's
oh my God.
percussion.
Like after the first track of "Farewell to Kings" and then like going to this track, it's just it's just a mind blowing song in my opinion. It's just oh man, it's amazing. If you haven't heard that song before, Rush fans, well, not Rush fans. If you're getting into Rush and you never heard that track,
No,
before,
if you're a Rush fan, you've definitely heard this song before.
yeah, I don't know why I said fans. If you're a music fan and you haven't heard the song already, listen to Xanadu.
I agree, but it's not my favorite song on the album. It's my second favorite song on the album. My third favorite song on the album, which is also could have been my favorite song on the album, is also Closer to the Heart, but that's not my favorite song on the album. My favorite song on the album is actually Cygnus X1, the closing track. This is a really epic track. I just think the whole vibe of this song is really cool. It's about a guy who's going to go into space on a spaceship that was named after Don Quixote's horse. He's going to fly it through a black hole and see what happens. And you got like these really atmospheric synthesizer at the beginning. You got Rush's producer, Terry Brown, provides the narration at the beginning that they're going to fly into the black hole of Cygnus X1. Nobody's ever come back from it. And then, like, while he's talking, you can ominously hear Geddy Lee's bass slowly creeping up. Do, 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 do. And it just keeps getting louder and louder. And then, like, finally, like, in the background, you just hear dong, dong. And then when it gets loud enough, it starts bow, bow, ba da da ba bow, 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 ba da ba ba ba. And then Alex joins in bow, bow, ba da da, bow, bow, ba da ba ba bow, 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 ba da bow. Bow, bow, ba da da bow, bow, and then it kind of goes into a little bit of a different section where they just kind of going do 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 do, and then Neil do 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 do. It's just really cool. And then once they kind of jam for a little bit, Geddy Lee kind of introduces that he's going to be flying into a black hole that's invisible to this telescopic eye. And then when it gets to the part where he's like on the ship, the Rocinante, and they're like, it gets to the really rocking part. And then I think my favorite part is actually the very end of the song where he sings really high, where it's like the and he's like, every nerve is torn apart. I mean, I can't do it, but like he like screams it out really high. It's like the highest note he's ever hit in any Rush song. And like that's just where the song ends, and you don't know what happens to him until we get to Hemispheres, which is on the next album. But that's definitely my favorite here. Again, like the honorable mentions were Closer to the Heart and Xanadu, and honestly, A Farewell to Kings, and honestly Cinderella Man too. Like there's lots of really good songs on this album.
Yeah, every song on this album is great. But if I had to pick my least favorite, it's the song you just mentioned, Cinderella Man. I love that track. I really do. I consider every track on this album to be a 10 out of 10, but it just happens to be this song happens to be my least favorite on the album.
I am going to have to go with Madrigal, just again for the fact that everything else on this album is so amazing that it's just not as good as the other stuff. I mean, it's still really great, but whenever you're competing up against Cygnus X1, Closer to the Heart, Xanadu, A Farewell to Kings, and Cinderella Man, like, I for the life of me cannot put any of those other songs as my last favorite on this album, so I'm gonna have to go with Madrigal.
That's fair. Now we get to an album with just 4 tracks on it.
Oh wait, no wait, sorry, it's Hemispheres. Yeah, there's only 4 songs on this album, so it's an all killer no filler album. There's no wasted time on this album. All 4 of these songs are amazing, and it's going to really pain me to tell you what my least favorite song on this album is, because my least favorite song on this album is still a very good song and a very underrated song.
Yeah. My favorite track on the album is The Trees.
That's a good choice.
It was my favorite when I first heard this album, and it still is my favorite song on the album. It is a masterpiece. I really like it. It definitely just a fantastic track. Like the first and last track are like very long songs, and then like the 2 in between aren't long. But like you just said, not a single second wasted on this album. But yeah, The Trees, what a fantastic track.
It is really amazing. For me, I am going to choose this. This might be an unconventional take. I know a lot of people, it's their favorite song, but still, I don't know if it's a lot of people's favorite. I really can't judge on where it ranks, where people put it on the album. I'm just going to have to go by what I think is the best song on this album. And for me, it is La Via Strangiato, an exercise in self-indulgence. It's an instrumental, but it's a really cool instrumental. It's a kind of a musical interpretation of some nightmares that Alex Lifeson was having on the road. And from the very beginning, it just has a really atmospheric feel to it. You got that really cool flamenco-style guitar at the beginning, and then the riff slowly grows in. Like the flamenco-style guitar is kind of him going to sleep, and then that riff that starts out is kind of him drifting off into the dreamland with the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And Neil's drumming behind that riff is absolutely insane. And then after that goes for a while, it just keeps getting louder and louder. And then once it reaches a loud volume, then you kind of get those power chords. Bow, bow, bow. Bow, bow, bow. Bow, bow, bow. Bow, bow, bow. And then the main riff of the song. I really like the main riff of the song. The ba 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 da 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 do 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 do. I really like that part. It's really catchy, and then I like how it kind of goes into an ethereal state where like it kind of just all kind of has that solid backbeat from Neil, which is still really complex, and Geddy is just kind of playing something simple in the background, even though he's going to go crazy later on in the song. And Alex rolls the tone back, has a really clean sound, and plays that absolutely insane solo. It's like the first of 15 solos he plays on this song or whatever. But the first solo he does is probably the most impressive one. All those crazy runs, and on that clean tone too. He starts out real simple, but then he starts going into all these really crazy runs, and then he goes into like the do 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 do, which transitions into the monsters section, which is kind of the theme from the Looney Tunes. Every time they'd go into a factory in Looney Tunes, it would play like the bow 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 ba da 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 bow 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 ba da 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 da. And they kind of took that and put it in their song. Which, funny enough, the person who wrote that song, Rush, thought it was old enough to be out of copyright law, but it wasn't, and Rush was nice enough to contact them and pay them for the royalties for that using that song. So I thought that was cool. And then I like the ending. He has another really cool song with like some slapback echo that's very dissonant and really weird, but it's really cool. And then you got the return of the monsters, and then at the end it just kind of goes like bum 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 wow, and that wow is kind of supposed to symbolize waking up. So, I really like this song. It's actually one of my top 10 Rush songs. I haven't made my list yet, but you can bet this is going to be on the top 10 list, even though there's no singing on it. But the musicianship on this song is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, very, very good. Very fantastic. My least favorite song on this album is Circumstances, which ironically is the song that came before my favorite song on the album. But even then,
There is trouble in the forest.
this song is amazing. But I'll put it the way that Garrett put it before, like it's going up against Cygnus X1 Hemispheres, and it's going up against that epic instrumental. So, like compared to those two amazing tracks, Circumstances sort of falls short.
Yeah, Circumstances is also my least favorite on the album, even though it's still great. And I really like the part where Geddy Lee is like, something about mankind caught by circumstance. Again, I can't sing like Geddy Lee. I'm just doing a really bad imitation. But that part, that's my favorite part whenever he does that. It's the chorus. I really like the guitar on this one. I like his vocal performance, but still. The trees, hemispheres, and La Via Strangiato. That's what you're going up against. Like, could there have been a fifth song that could be the worst, is my question.
Yeah, I know, right?
I kind of see Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres as like the double album that never was. I feel like if those two were a double album, that would be a very good double album. Like,
It would have been a perfect double album.
yeah, and I would have called the album Closer to the Heart, and had the album cover would be this kind of, except like actually have some of the Greek gods standing on the brain instead of like the dancing guy and the guy in the suit, and then have like the space traveler in the middle holding up a heart that says balance on it. That's what I would have done, but
Yeah.
they didn't come up with those songs in 1977. They released it in 1978, so it couldn't have been a double album. But if it was, just saying, would have been
Yeah, it
a
would have
really
been
good
great.
one.
Or maybe like if they would have held off on making that album and then they would have came up with those songs and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might, whenever my roommate and I go through Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres, we might have to listen to them back to back.
Yeah, not only that, but we should review them back to back as well.
Yeah, do both of them in one video, because yeah, there's only 4 songs on Hemispheres. Like, it's not going to take very long to review 4 songs, even though Hemispheres is like 20 minutes long. But
Not only that, but doing a top five, we couldn't do that either. We would have to just rank the songs at that point.
yeah, so when we do Farewell to Kings, we'll do Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres in the same review. That
Yeah,
sounds
that's
like
a
a
good
good
idea.
idea. Okay, moving on. We've got Permanent Waves, the first Rush album of the 1980s.
And what a banger to start it off with.
Oh, yeah.
And oh man. Uh, my favorite song on Permanent Waves is Natural Science.
That's a good choice.
What a fantastic way of ending off the album. I don't know if it was from you though, or if it was someone on the internet, but like someone said like Tom Sawyer would have been perfect on this, would have been a great song on this album, and then like Vital Signs would have been a perfect song on Signals. To like the way that they started off was sort of like songs like this album, but then like this, the last songs like Signals. I forgot who said that.
I don't remember that. That's definitely ringing a bell. I remember that. I
Yeah.
think I was in like the comment section of something, and somebody was like saying that. I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. Well, Natural Science is like a great way to end off the album and does show like what they were going into with the next album
Oh,
because
I remember that. It was someone in the comment section said that the camera eye should have been the closing uh, song to Moving Pictures because it's more akin to Natural Science. That's what it was.
yeah.
But I disagree. Vital Signs is the perfect way to end Moving Pictures.
Yeah, it's my favorite Rush song, so I have a bias for that too. Oh, didn't mean to say that. I'm serious. I didn't mean to say that because
That's okay.
obviously it's going to spoil what my favorite song on Moving Pictures is. Well, Natural Science. Well, going back to that, great song. I don't have a whole lot to say. Like, this is my second time listening to Permanent Waves, and I really like Permanent Waves, but besides Presto and uh, Grace Under Pressure, this is probably my least favorite of their '80s stuff. Like, in terms of like their first three '80s albums, well, their first, second, and Power Windows, it's probably my least favorite out of the three. But it's still amazing though. But yeah, Natural Science is a great song though.
I am going to be a little bit basic and go with The Spirit of Radio as my favorite on this album. But it's because it's just so good. Like you drop the needle on the record and the first thing you hear is and like the lyrics kind of reflecting their unhappiness with radio stations that only want to play pop hits that people are making just for money, where it's like radio should be free to play songs that are expressing artistic vision because it's like a gift that brings, it's like a, what is it, radio waves bring a gift beyond life, almost free, like it's a free gift that's like beyond life. I really like Neil's lyrics on this one. I love the Simon and Garfunkel homage where they say, the words of the prophets were written on the studio walls, the concert halls, echoes with the sounds of salesmen. I love that part. I love that reggae breakdown that goes into that part. The first time I heard this song, I was like, did they just reference Simon and Garfunkel but like change the words? That's so cool. I love the chorus with Neil using the xylophone. I love the little sound effect on his voice when he says invisible waves crackle with life, kind of demonstrating the radio waves bringing the music to people on, like, going into their antenna. Very catchy, very cool guitar riff that I mentioned earlier. Um, Probably one of Alex's best guitar solos, if I'm being honest. The guitar solo on this is epic. I love the part with the wah wah where it's like. It's just a really cool song, and this is also going to be in my top 10. But um, Jacob's Ladder and Natural Science also could have been my favorite song on this album, but instead I'm going to have to go with The Spirit of Radio just because it's too good.
You know what's funny is that those are my three favorite songs too on the album. Natural Science,
Yeah.
my second favorite, Jacob's Ladder, and my third favorite is Spirit of the Radio. So our top three is very similar. If we have a
Okay,
do,
now for a difficult one. What's your least favorite?
yes, my least favorite. Even then, it's I ranked all their songs from the first album to Roll the Bones, and out of 104 songs, this ranks at number 56, not like 57. So proves that I don't like that I not say I don't like it, that I don't dislike it. That would be Different Strings. Yeah, it's really good, but to me, not nearly as good as the other 5 tracks on the album. Yeah,
So the contenders for my least favorite song are Different Strings, Entre Nous, and honestly, even Free Will. Just because the other stuff is so amazing. But I'm going to have to go with Different Strings as well. And honestly, just because it's the song I'm the least familiar with. I've listened to all these other songs a lot, but off the top of my head, I can remember that it's really good and really underrated, but um, I don't remember a whole lot about the song, and so that's why I'm picking it. Honestly, yeah, I'm gonna need to listen to this album again. Maybe if I play it again, I'm gonna throw a curveball and be like, yeah, Free Will is my least favorite, even though it's one of the most popular songs on the album. Because I really like Entre Nous because it's like a love song, but it's a love song Rush style with Neil's kind of like this is the philosophy behind love.
yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
All right. Moving on. Okay, Moving Pictures, 1981. This is going to be hard to pick a least favorite song on. Honestly, it's going to be hard to pick a favorite song on here, too, but what you got?
Yeah, sorry to
know what
say
you're
that,
gonna
but
pick.
my picking my least favorite was extremely easy for this album.
I think I know what you're going to pick.
Yeah, I rank it number 77 on my list of Rush songs.
Ouch.
I know that's the only. Well, it's still a 10 out of 10 album because my 2 favorites on this album were just that good. But yeah, sorry, Carrot. uh, my favorite song on this album. Sorry to people who don't like the song. It's Vital Signs.
That's
This
a really
song.
underrated song.
Man, I love this track. It is so good. Easily, I already said it already. This is my favorite Rush song of all time. I remember first hearing this song and be like, it's good, but now it's my favorite Rush song of all time. Here's a big hot take. I think this song is better than anything reggae related that the Police ever did.
Fair enough.
Yeah, any like from their first 3 albums, I consider it to be that their reggae period, and I find this song to be better than anything on those albums.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I think I can agree with that.
It's
As
just
someone who just listened to the Place's first 3 albums,
yeah,
which
the song is just I don't know, like the beginning with the dun 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 dun.
yeah,
The music video is perfect too with the I don't know what it's called, but if you ever watch the music video, it's cool, and I like the opening line, "Unstable condition."
yeah.
The way he sings it is just it's so Sting like, and I love that.
You know what? I think that this is the one song on this album that kind of foreshadows the direction they're heading with their next albums.
Yeah,
Everything else they've kind of got a foot in the Permanent Waves section, but whenever I hear this song, it's like, oh, like I can kind of hear how they can transition to signals or even power windows, honestly, in this song.
maybe that's the reason why it's my favorite off this album. And it's my favorite Rush song in general. It's like it reminds me so much of the song from. It reminds me so much of songs that would be on Signals. Yeah, it's just my favorite part is from Extended Incoherence. This one person said that he's a sloppy guitar player, Alex Lifeson. I don't agree with that. That was a horrible hot take. That wasn't
Who
even a hot
said
take.
that?
This,
Alex,
this one person
did
on
he
the
mention this song as a reason why? Because Alex Lifeson is purposefully syncopating the guitar on this one and playing the chords on different beats than they should be, just for like an artistic way. And it's really hard to replicate this song and get the beat exactly where Alex plays it because of that.
Oh, he didn't mention this song, but he's just like, oh, he has sloppy playing. I'm like, oh man, that's not even a hot take. That's just
Alex
being
is
wrong.
one of the least sloppy guitar players I've ever heard. Like everything he plays, like I've heard some live performances from Jimmy Page where like he was too busy trying to improvise and kind of just like was just playing whatever came off the top of his head, and whatever came off the top of his head wasn't exactly amazing. But I've heard some live performances, and Alex Lifeson nails his riffs and his solos every time.
Yeah, I was just as confused as you were.
That is a very hot take and a very incorrect take.
Yeah, there's a difference between a hot take and a just an incorrect take, and to me that was an incorrect take, in my opinion.
Sloppy guitar
Man.
player. Listen to YYZ.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
listen to how like dead on he is with that. And he comes in right on the beat. Which that is not my favorite song on the album. I've definitely considered YYZ being my favorite song on this album. After long thinking about what my favorite song on this album is, I have concluded that it is Limelight. And I am picking that song because it's very deep and personal to Neil Peart. Wrote the lyrics about how the pressures of being famous were getting to him, that like people were coming around that kind of treating him like they knew everything about him even though he didn't know them. Like they just kind of were living in what he calls the gilded cage or whatever on the stage. He's kind of trapped there, doesn't really have a lot of privacy in his life. And I love the Shakespeare reference. All the world's indeed a stage, and we are merely players, performers, and portrayers. I love those lyrics in here. The guitar riff is absolutely amazing, and Alex Lifeson himself says this is his favorite guitar solo he's ever done, so that's kind of some high praise there, which the guitar solo is really good on this one. Just really cool, and honestly, for how catchy this song is, it's very rhythmically complex. There's lots of changing time signatures on it. It's just, for lack of anything better to say, just a great song.
Yeah, it's my third favorite on the album. Very close second was Camera Eye.
Camera Eye
Which
has definitely grown on me. It was my least favorite song when I first listened to it. It is not going to be my least favorite song that I mentioned here because it's grown on me a lot.
yeah. Well, I didn't mention the name already, but my least favorite song on the album is Witch Hunt. It was when I first heard it, and it still is. That song, it will grow on me eventually. It will, but I don't think it will ever be as good as the other 6 songs on the album. I mean, it's going up against Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, YYZ, Limelight, Camera Eye, and Vital Signs, for crying out loud. So it's gonna to me. It's almost like a losing battle right there.
Yeah. My least favorite song on this album is Tom Sawyer. Overplay. No. I just wanted to see what your reaction would be.
You think my least favorite would be Tom Sawyer, right?
My least favorite is also Witch Hunt. While Camera Eye definitely grew on me, Witch Hunt kind of has gone down for me. I still like the song. I like the kind of the message behind it, that it's like people like nowadays, like nothing's really changed. That back in the day, if you didn't like someone, you could just call them a witch, and like people would like bully them. In like the 30s and 40s, you could call someone a communist and people will bully them. Like nowadays, you can just call someone a racist and people will bully them. Like that kind of doesn't really change. Like mob mentalities. I really like the guitar, but at the same time, like so many other just really good songs on this album that it's got to be last.
Yeah. Not that, but it's my second least favorite of the Fear trilogy.
Mm. Yeah, like starting to think about it, I think my favorite of the Fear trilogy is actually your least favorite.
Oh, the one on
The Enemy Within. I really liked that song. That one was really cool. Which we'll get to that whenever we talk about later Rush, but
yeah.
okay, we've made it to Signals.
AKA my favorite Rush album.
This is an album that the first time I heard it, I didn't like it. It was very different than Moving Pictures, and I was not expecting it to be that different. I thought it was going to be a little bit more similar, and it wasn't. And when the first time I heard it, I'm like, I do not like the direction they're going at all, and it made me want to stop listening. And honestly, if I would have listened any further, I probably wouldn't have liked any of those albums. But now that I've had about a year break from Rush, almost, I started listening to them in the fall of last year. I think I was definitely ready to pick up with Rush again, and Grace Under Pressure, Power Windows, and Hold Your Fire are definitely three really amazing albums. But I really like this album now. I can appreciate the different direction that they're going with this album. I actually like it. Kind of pointless for them to be doing the same thing. They need to evolve, even though part of me still wishes that there could have been just a little bit more of the old Rush in them. But I'm not complaining too much. The stuff that they gave us in the decade of the 1980s from 1982 onward is still really amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I still think it's my favorite, but the reason why I really liked it the first time was because I thought it was completely opposite from moving pictures, and I used to
It
not like
is.
moving pictures, so you're when like take it with a grain of salt. For someone who wasn't crazy about moving pictures, I'm gonna like something that's not moving pictures. So yeah, but even then, just re-listening to the album again. At first, when I was going through the albums again, I was like, "Is Farewell to the Kings gonna be my new favorite Rush album?" But then I'm like, you know what? No, Signals is still up there. Still my favorite. I mean, uh, six of the 10 songs on my top 10 has Signals tracks on it. So that should tell you how much I really like Signals.
Mm,
But if I had to pick my absolute favorite track on the album, it will be Losing It. The second last track on the album. And when I first heard this track, when I first heard this album, I'm like, all these tracks are great, but revisiting this particular album a couple of times, definitely Losing It's the best track on the album. I wouldn't say easily because there's still songs like The Weapon, which to me is my favorite part of the trilogy of the Fear trilogy. Has Chemistry, which I really like, and it has subdivisions too. So those three are amazing tracks. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Losing It.
my favorite song on this album is Subdivisions. That's another probably basic choice, but I really like it. I love the synth intro, kind of announcing, "Hey, we're Rush and we're in the '80s." Like we started kind of having these synths creep in on our last album, but they're here to dominate on this album, and we're just gonna sound that off with a bow 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 bow. And Neil's drumming on that song and on this whole album, honestly, is really good. Even though Alex is kind of taking more of a back seat on this album, every note he plays is absolutely vital to the song, especially in Subdivisions. The guitar solo on this song is probably one of my favorite Rush guitar solos just because of how perfect it is. The lyrics really hit home, kind of talking about how society kind of makes you conform and be like other people if you want to fit in, like kind of discourages individualism, feeling alone, wandering around the streets. Well, I've never really wandered around the streets, but kind of feeling like you're a little different than other people and knowing that that's okay and just kind of celebrating that. And this song it's a really good song, and I just really like the sound of it. Also, it's really cool, and I love the way that I think it's Alex Lifeson like pitched down. I love the way that goes subdivisions. I really like that.
Yeah, it was always cool. Well, my least favorite song on the album, which to me is sad, but my least favorite song on this album is number 17, as opposed to Moving Pictures' worst song, which is 77. So I don't know.
So that
That's
means you still really like it.
yeah. I mean, my least favorite on 2112 is at number 27. So yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, Countdown. I mean, after a brilliant song like Losing It, not that, but to count, the songs I just said, Subdivisions, Analog Kid, Chemistry, Digital Man, The Weapon, and the epic New World Man. Countdown sort of doesn't have a chance between these seven songs.
Mm, you're gonna hate me for my least favorite on this album.
What is it?
My least favorite is The Weapon.
Okay.
I mean, I really like the Professor's drumming. I just don't like it as much as the other stuff on the album. I think it's supposed to be about like Cold War propaganda, making people like be in fear, and that fear is a weapon that you hold against yourself. But I don't know. I just don't like this song as much as the other stuff on the album, especially not as much as like Digital Man, Analog Kid, New World Man, Losing It. And honestly, I really like Countdown. I think it's kind of their last really experimental, well, experimental in the sense of old Rush. Like they definitely get
Yeah.
experimental in different ways, but it's the last of the old Rush is on Countdown with them making a song about like like rockets taking off and moon landing, and you got like the sound effects in the background, which that's I think that's why I liked the Learjet song on the Birds, is that they were doing the same thing 25 years earlier. I don't know, is it 20, was it 60, 65,
This came out in
75,
82.
75 to,
So,
yeah, about 20 years earlier.
yeah. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, 16 to be exact.
16, okay. I'm not good at math.
Yeah.
Well, we made it all the way through the Rush albums here up until 1982. It was really cool to get to go over all of that. I really hope you guys will join in when we do part 2. I'm going to try to collect most of the Rush albums before we do that, but it might be a bit because I need money. I have Grace Under Pressure on the way. I'm definitely getting that one pretty soon. But I also need to listen to all these later Rush albums several times to really get a feel for them, because as of right now, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. I said this earlier in the group chat, but I feel like, well, most bands, their 80s output is the easiest to get into, and then you have to kind of listen to their 70s stuff a lot to really appreciate it more. It's the opposite with Rush. Like, you can listen to their 70s stuff, and it's like, oh, wow, this is really good, but then you listen to their 80s stuff, and, like, it takes several listens before you can really appreciate how good it is. Like, the first time I listened to Power Windows, like, I was really tired, and I fell asleep listening to it, and I was like, well, was that really a really great album? Like, people have been talking about how good this album, and I was really disappointed. But I listened to it a second time, and I was like, no, this has some really good stuff. Marathon, The Big Money, Mystic Rhythms, what's the song? Territories. Yeah, it's a really great album. And also Grace Under Pressure and Hold Your Fire. I'm not as big on Presto, but there was still some good stuff on there. But I definitely need to listen to those some more before I can get a good favorite and least favorite on every album, and before I can rank the albums, because if not, then I'm going to have all this stuff high and the other stuff low. But that's kind of my conclusion to our ranking here. Anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, the Big Money, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's definitely up there on my top 10 as of now.
Oh, and the Manhattan Project. I love that song. That one's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, most of my least favorite stuff is from their debut and, Grace Under Pressure.
I actually like that album. Okay, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully sometime pretty soon we'll get to do our top 10 songs from 1974 to 1982. That is going to be very difficult to make a list for, but we hope to see you in the next video. I just released the Who Sell Out review today. If anybody wants to go check that out, that was a fun video to make. We next week are going to be doing Breakfast in America by Supertramp. That is an album that I was very late in listening to. It's incredible. Can't wait to review that, but until then, we will see you guys next time.
So long.